You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. And now, it's time for the show that breaks down the options market from unusual activity alerts to market analysis, strategy overviews, listener questions, and much more. If it involves puts and calls, then our all-star panel will break it down. It's time to hit the Option Block with your host, Mark Longo from the Options Insider Media Group and co-hosts Uncle Mike Tusaw from St. Charles Wealth Management, Mark the Greasy Meatball Sebastian from OptionPit.com, Andrew the Rock Lobster, Joe Benazzi from OptionPit.com, and Henry the Flowmaster Schwartz from SIBO. The Option Block is brought to you by SIBO. SIBO's suite of S&P 500 index options, SPX and mini S&P 500 XSP options, allows traders to speculate on the direction of the market, generate income, and hedge for downside protection of their portfolio of stocks. No matter what kind of trader you are, there's plenty of useful information to take the guesswork out of creating your portfolio strategy and to help you make more educated moves in the market. Visit www.sibo.com/SPX today to learn more. The views expressed herein are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views of CBOE Global Markets Incorporated or any of its subsidiaries, collectively CBOE. The information provided is for general education and information purposes only. There are important risks associated with transacting in any of the CBOE products or any of the digital assets discussed here. Before engaging in any transactions in those products or digital assets, it is important for market participants to carefully review the disclosures and disclaimers contained at www.cboe.com/US_disclaimers. These products and digital assets are complex and are suitable only for sophisticated market participants. These products involve the risk of loss, which can be substantial and, depending on the type of product, can exceed the amount of money deposited in establishing the position. Market participants should put at risk only funds they can afford to lose without affecting their lifestyle. And now, get ready to hit the Option Block.
All right, everybody, that music means we are back. It is Thursday. It is the first Thursday of the new trading year. Off to a wild start already. I said, watch out for January. Kind of comes in like a lion, so should be some fun stuff to talk about today. My name, of course, Mark Longo from the OptionsInsider.com, as well as from the network upon which all of you folks were mainlining last year. Just a reminder at the start of the year, if you're not subscribed to the full network, man, you're missing out. And of course, if you want to go above and beyond, you want to check out, maybe, rumor has it, a Vol Deathmatch coming up with one Flowmaster guy, as well as pro Q&As, options, oddities, all sorts of fun. The OptionsInsider.com/pro is the place to go to get your hands on all of that goodness as we get our hands on who's joining us on the first Thursday show of the new year. First, let's go out to the hinterlands of St. Charles, where we are joined once again by the uncleest of Mikes, Mr. Uncle Mike Tusaw from St. Charles Wealth Management. Uncle Mike, welcome back to the show, sir, for the first Thursday of the new year.
Always exciting on the first Thursday show of the new year. Happy New Year, everybody. You can still say it, up to a week after?
We can still say it. You can go all the way to March. Who cares? Let's have fun. Happy New Year. I'm going to say Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year 1978.
There we go. Good year.
79 is going to be better, folks. I promise.
A good year, 1978. As we also welcome on for the first time in the new year, it's been a little bit since we checked in with him, our good buddy, the Flowmaster, a.k.a. Mr. Henry Schwartz, beaming in from the hallowed halls of SIBO East. Mr. Flowmaster, welcome back to the show. Happy New Year to you, sir.
Happy New Year, Mark and Mike, and it's great to be here. And yet, I don't like it when the holidays fall on Thursdays, and I don't get to be on the options block.
Yeah.
But I am. I had a very, very nice holiday season, and I am back and raring to go. And I was excited to come in. I actually came into the office on New Year's Eve just to see if anything was going on, and guess what? Nothing was going on. But then I was back on Monday and raring to go. So and with as you said, it's already a pretty interesting one. We've got some unprecedented things taking place out there in geopolitics, and the markets moving around too. So far it's pretty interesting year.
Unprecedented things. The week's barely a year old. Going to be a banger. Let's get into it. It is time for the trading block.
It's time to break down the latest topics, trades, and trends in the world of options. It's time for the trading block.
All right, everybody. Welcome to the trading block, the portion of the show where we break down what the heck is trading, what's been lighting up our tape and the option screens today and indeed this week. And coming into the start of the show today, the market's kind of vacillating, struggling to find purchase. The S&P is almost literally unched. It's up about a handle as we're talking, which in these markets is pretty much unched. The Dow up about 0.2%, and then the NASDAQ going in the other direction, off a little over 0.5%. So kind of a weird mixed start to the session today. A lot of people are kind of seemingly keeping their powder dry ahead of the jobs number tomorrow. So we shall see. We shall see what is going on out there. VIX cash was at about a 1530. Right before we kicked off the show, puts it up about exactly a point from where it was on the Monday show. Has retreated a little bit right before showtime, got down to about a 15.15, which still puts it up about 0.85 from where it was this time on Monday. But you know what? I want to kick things off with the Flowmaster. We haven't chatted with him in quite some time. If you have some thoughts on this week's markets, by all means, but I think Mr. Flowmaster, what folks are waiting for, Uncle Mike and I did a pretty deep dive into the wild year that was 2025 on our first episode of the new year. I also did some deep diving with Mr. Jim Carroll, a.k.a. Mr. VIXologist, on vol views last Friday as well. We did a deep dive yesterday on the futures rundown. We've been breaking down 2025 from just about every different perspective under the sun. The one perspective that we are missing is the Flowmaster. So the folks have been waiting. I have budgeted 38 minutes for you, sir. So have at it.
I will not torture people for 38 minutes, but I do have some kind of highlights for last year. As you've definitely let your listeners know, and OCC has as well. It was the sixth straight record. We averaged almost 61 million contracts a day, which you really have to, that's growth of 26% over last year. So that is really healthy growth. You also got to think back to, pre-COVID, we were not doing more than 20 million contracts a day. So now we're doing 60. That volume has tripled in just 6 years. So, and it's very broadly spaced out. We saw index growth of around 21%. That's primarily the SPX, and in there it's primarily the 0DTE. Continues to see really strong activity. ETF option volume was up 23%, and single stock option volume, which had actually been holding its own with the others, kind of surged in December. Even though December was a little bit of a slow month, the single stock complex got really busy again. That was up 28% year over year. So, basically what we're looking at for the year was 32 million contracts a day in the single stock options, 22 million contracts a day in ETFs, 5 million a day in index, and 1.4 million contracts a day in flex options, which I know retail investors don't really have access to, but for institutional traders and also for kind of some of these structured products, these levered ETFs, these kind of funky ETFs with barriers and they're called defined outcome, where they effectively buy a put and sell a call, or maybe they do it in the form of a collar. They tend to use flex options as well. So we have records basically everywhere. And, just in terms of what was really driving that, it was market conditions, and it was the Mag 10 stocks. Like, to have a year where the S&P was up over 16%, that's a really strong equity year, and there really is a wealth effect when it comes to retail trading of options. Retail makes up about half of the options activity currently. So a strong year for equities. People have more money to put to work in in these kind of various option strategies, with some of that discretionary income they have. So I would say the other kind of big things that are going on in the industry, we have 2 new exchanges that are going to start this year. So that'll bring us up to 20 options exchanges run by 6 exchange operators. And we might continue to see growth there. I think we probably will, given how busy things are. So, it's just basically kind of all the conditions were ripe for a lot of activity. We saw growth in the big institutional, high touch blocks, as well as that retail stuff, which is primarily executing electronically. And I think this year we'll continue to see, more innovation. I'm doing a panel in Chicago where I'll see you, Mark, at the middle of the month. I guess it's next week, actually. We're going to be talking about innovation and just kind of, where this market is headed, because, six records in a row, and, it's tough to match 26% growth. But, you really continue to see, even, we'll talk about what the market conditions are this week or this year. But there is just so much going on, and you've got so much kind of momentum in terms of people using listed options to adjust their exposure, to basically get in, get out, express the views that they believe. If you think about, this, kind of what we're looking at right now with after the military or legal action in Venezuela, that there's a lot of people that have very strong convictions about how they want to view this, and also how they want to position for it. And that's what we've seen. So, it is funny you're saying, S&P today, it really is almost dead flat. We were down a little bit this morning, then we were up, and now we're kind of just wavering around. But that's great conditions for people to be getting in and adjusting positions. So, it's been, at Cboe, we've got all sorts of things. We launched our Mag 10 index options. We launched our Bitcoin ETF index options. There's daily contracts in both of those now. So I actually traded at 0DTE Mag 10 yesterday. So there's kind of more things for people to explore, and kind of carefully try to find, trades that fit their objectives and their skills. And I think it's going to be another great year. I don't, people, there's no, it's only going one way. So, I don't know if we can match 25% growth, but we will continue to see growth. And I'll tell you, if we do start to see the daily or the short-term expirations in single stocks, which, that's been kind of on the table, and the regulators are still thinking about it. But that would be kind of another shot in the arm in terms of volume. So lots of very, very constructive things going on, and I'm excited for the year and happy to be here.
People want to know, Mr. Flowmaster, the last time we chatted with you, you said you were looking to pinpoint the exact moment when the 15 billionth contract changed hands last year. Were you able to highlight it? Were you able to track down the person who did it? Or perhaps even more impressively, were you able to step in front of it and do it yourself, sir?
So it was on the 26th of December. So I found it. It was a part of a spread in CoreWeave, and it actually happened to trade on Cboe, which is just coincidental. I put it on LinkedIn. I asked if anybody recognized the trade and wants to take credit for it, to let me know, but I did not get any takers. It was a decent size. It was like a 5-way little spread in CoreWeave. But it was funny because for it to go up on Christmas Eve, which was one of the quietest days of the year, on the day after Christmas. It was a full trading day, but it was a Friday after Christmas, so not the most busy day. And on top of that, I think they'd decided pretty late in the game it was going to be a federal holiday too for Boxing Day. It snuck in there. There's another milestone that I looked at that I just noticed as I was filling in a couple of my slides is we actually in November 21st we topped 2 million individual strikes. So I talk about sometimes at these conferences there's a discussion about the proliferation of options, meaning strikes by expirations, and how we went from like 1.4 million total contracts out there to to almost 2, and now we've actually topped 2 million, and that's because of the fact that the market's been moving around and that we have all these short-dated expirations, it's a serious technical load for the industry to absorb, right? For customers, large and small, to have access to real-time quotes coming from 18 different exchanges on basically 2 million different instruments is an enormous feat. And to see the liquidity that we see and have things kind of work smoothly, knock on wood, is really a pretty astounding accomplishment. So 2 million options out there, and again, I don't quite see that going down. So the participants have to get used to it, and what's kind of cool is the brokers themselves can basically come up with some pretty cool tools to help traders find the trade that they want to do, and not have to go looking through option chains with tens of thousands of individual contracts. The kind of the way that things are evolving and technology is lets us do some pretty great kind of trade selection and trade engineering tasks. So and of course you can use AI for that too.
How appropriate that you did actually track down the 15 billionth guy. I had a feeling you had the bit in your teeth. I had a feeling you're gonna track that person down. Really quickly, anything you want to add about what we're seeing in this first week of the new year, sir?
I mean, we are already having a decent little, the Russell's up 5% year to date. Okay, year to date, it's only the 8th of January. So S&P is up more than 1%. It's been a little bit choppy, right? We had a couple strong up days. I think a lot of people were a little surprised and maybe a little bit, there was some FOMO and some chasing as we ran up on the 2 days following that Venezuela action. Things have kind of, we sold off a little bit yesterday, a little bit today, I guess you could say. But literally, what's kind of astounding to me is, VIX is basically hanging around 15, even though, we have some pretty major things taking place in the world. Volume is strong. I think today we're going to see, looks like about 62 million contracts. So that continues. Just it's. I think I said it a few times last year. Like these shakeups, especially there's also some kind of wacky things going on in the defense industries, right? Because there's a lot of kind of tweets going around about this defense spending and some of the companies individually, and whether or not that's a great dynamic. It is what's going on, and people are trading around it. So. Just lots of action out there. It's fun.
All right, and now we turn our attention to the hinterlands of Chicago, to Uncle Mike. Never let it be said that I am not an even Steven kind of guy. So, Uncle Mike, you also get 38 minutes to hold court on whatever you want, sir. Have at it. The floor is yours.
All right, so we're going to talk about how you can pull 2 tackles on the same play. Mark didn't think it could be done, but I didn't. You're right. For him that it actually can be done.
I thought you were speaking madness, sir. I thought you had gone insane.
But I actually drew up a play to where it actually can happen. So anyway, in terms of the markets so far for this year, we're starting out to where we're at the 6,900 level in the SPX. And I really believe that what this year is what we're positioning a lot of our clients on, number one, we did have a new all-time high yesterday. Unfortunately, it wasn't during the show, but if for some reason we rally 40 points in the next few minutes, I will mention to everyone that we have a new all-time high in the S&P. But one of the things that we're looking at and how we're positioning ourselves in a lot of ways, the last couple of years, the small caps and the mid caps have really not participated in this market rally. And I believe that things are still good in America. We still do have a good economy, but let's be honest with ourselves. When you have a stock that's as big as Google, as an example, Google that started last year off at roughly the 190 level, and when Google can increase to when a stock as big as Google can go over 300 and go up over 50% in a year, that's a big part of why stocks went up last year. There's stocks like Google, there's stocks like NVDA, there's stocks like Palantir, things like that were the stocks that really hammered the market up higher quite a bit. And so the fact that we're still bullish on America, so to speak, still bullish on the economy, but we've had the small caps and the mid caps kind of lag over the course of the last couple of years. That's an area of focus for us in 2026, and we're excited about that. We think there is some potential there. Of course, I have to mention that on a day where the S&P is flat on the day or down maybe a point. Russell's up over 1%, and the S&P mid cap is up 0.4% on the day. So that's an area with which we think can be some opportunity. The other thing that I'm noticing, silver, maybe 70 is actually resistance with silver. Who knows with that? But we do have silver below the 70 level, at least in the SLV arena, if you will. And then, of course, tomorrow we get some big news coming out of the Supreme Court as to whether these tariffs are going to be able to stick or not. Definitely going to be watching that one with bated breath. But a lot going on, and I think we are going to be in for kind of a market shift, if you will, in 2026, because I don't see 7 stocks or whatever it is driving up the entire market yet again in 2026, but I could be wrong.
There you go. I shall take back the remaining 35 minutes that I allocated to the member from St. Charles, listeners. All right, let's break down some of the other numbers we're seeing out there in the market today. Like we said, it's only really a week and a day into the new year and the first full trading week, and we're already kind of starting to see some numbers again. The VIX not languishing out of the gate at all today. 450,000 contracts on the tape. That would look decent if we were back at our 1 million contracts a day ADV. We are not there. We are at around 750,000, so looks even more impressive in that context. And then out to SPY. Is SPY looking robust? Is SPY looking active today? The answer is yes, 5.6 million contracts. Even though SPY was hunched when we kicked off the show, not stopping it from putting up some numbers out there today, listeners. The ADV a little over 9, about 9.1 in SPY. The S, 2.5 million, so a little bit less than half of what we got going up in SPY right now. The ADV, 4.1 million. Small caps, as the Flow Master alluded to, having themselves a day. Small caps off to the races. The ADV is back down. I say back down in air quotes because it's still ridiculously elevated. 1.5 million contracts. There was a time not too long ago when small caps got to about 1 million contracts a day. We said, oh, that's it. That's about as high as they can go. That's ridiculous volume for small caps. Obviously blowing through that last year and still hanging out at 1.5 million and already almost there. 1.45 million contracts on the tape in IWM right now, up over about 1.1% on the day. So as the Flow Master alluded to, up about 5% for the year, up over 1% just today. So a good year in just a week for small caps. If you're wondering what is the hot option in small caps land, and again, come back at the end of the day for our hot options report. We'll break it all down for you. But right now, the hot option in small caps, it's 105,000 of the 258 calls obviously expiring today. We know major index is all about 0 day these days. Small caps hanging out right now, right around 258 and a quarter. So slightly in the money calls. They last traded for around 39.40 cents. So those are looking pretty good right now. Can they keep up the momentum or will they stall out? We shall see as we keep going to the Qs. What's lighting up the tape in the Qs? The answer is a whole heck of a lot of paper. 3.75 million contracts on the tape already. The ADV is a little north of 5, about 5.1 million contracts. So the Q's looking pretty robust out there as well today, listeners. Will they get to that ADV, or will the second half of the session be kind of a dumpster fire? I guess we'll find out. By the way, the hot option in the Q's right now, we're hanging out pretty close to 620, 619 and 3/4 roughly. And it's about 294,000 of these 620 calls expiring today, going up for about $1.10 on average, that are leading the dance in the Q's right now. But I know all of you want to know, is it a hot day in single names? And you know what? It cost you exactly 300,000 contracts to break into our top 10 today. That's a nice even psychological number, but not quite the level we've said. Maybe we'll fudge it. Maybe we'll fudge it this new year. We'll say it's only 300K. In the past, it has been 350,000 contracts for our threshold of respectability. But you know what? 300K ain't bad at the end of the day. What am I talking about? I'm talking about Meta, listeners. Meta putting up 300,000 contracts for the number 10 spot today, giving back some to the market gods today, trading 641.40 off 7 1/3, about a little over 1, about 1.1%. So come in for Meta a little bit today. Obviously feeling some of that red that's lighting up the NASDAQ tape today. Number 9, our old pal Intel. They came rallying north yesterday. Now given some of that back today. 41.31 off $1.30, or a little over 3, about 3.1%. Good for number 9, almost 400K. So, we're at number 9 already at almost 400K, 393. So that is respectable volume for this portion of the session. Number 8, our old pal AMD. This name has come under assault over the last, week or so. It's been mostly red just about every session. They're off about 7% over the past week or so. Today, giving up about 2.6%, or about 5.5 handles, trading right around 204.5 right now. Good for number 8, 419. So start of the new year, CES, whatever it is, maybe that announcement from NVDA taking a wood chipper to AMD, whatever it is, the forces are arraying against AMD to start the new year. They're off nearly 7%. The same time period that small caps are up about 7%. So funky how that works. Number 8, AMD. 419. Number 7. This is the name a lot of people are watching intently in the new year. It's the monster, because whither the monster goes, so goes Bitcoin, and then so goes the crypto market, and perhaps the market as a whole. The monster, number 7 today, 423, 169.5, up 765, or about 4 3/4%. So looking good on the crypto front today. Let's keep climbing to number 6. Uncle Mike was just talking about this one and what a wild year they had last year. We'll add another 1.5% to it. What am I talking about? It's Alphabet. Number 6, 454 on the tape, trading 326.5, up about 4.5, or about 1.4% just today. This name's so big, it's almost like an index unto itself. So when it moves over 1, about 1.5% in the day, people sit up and take notice, putting up 454,000 contracts for the number 6 spot. Now we get to it. Number 5. Uncle Mike talks a good game about silver and SPY. He's maybe dropping some hints about small caps in the new year, but we all know what he really comes to the dance for. It's Palantir, number 5, 457 on the tape. He's got to get in touch with his cabal, put some buy-in back in, because Palantir selling off again today, 177.16 off $4.50, or about 2.5%. So not a great day for the Palatonians. I don't know what they call themselves, but let's call them that. Why not? Number 5, 457 on the tape. Are you a Palatonian, listeners? Number 4, Amazon, 489 on the tape. So we got to 400K pretty quickly, right around number 9, and we've stayed pretty much glued there all the way up to number 4. So it seemed like we were going to get impressive, and then we kind of stayed around 400K for most of the top 10 today. Number 4, the Amazonians saying sell off. What sell off? 245 3/4, up about 416, about 1 3/4%. So a nice little pop for the Amazonians, putting up 489,000 contracts for the number 4 spot. Number 3, another name that's had a rough start to the year. This is the name that really had to work to find downside last year. Towards the tail end of last year, the market had to sell off a lot to get Apple to turn even a few cents to the red. Now it's almost every session, it seems like it's dipping to the red. The fruit company, number 3, 765 on the tape. Off another $3 today, or about 1.1%, trading 257.40 right now. Year to date, they're off 5.5%. Now, don't get me wrong, They've obviously popped nearly 100 handles from where they announced their stock buyback, so they still had a pretty good run. I'm just saying it's kind of interesting to see which way the market is turning to kick off the new year. Is it turning to Tesla coming in at number 2 today? The answer is yes. 435 and a third, up nearly $4, or about almost 1%. Tesla also kind of coming under assault so far for the new year, off a little over 5%, or about 23 handles. This one's been wild. You know, if you've been listening to our hot options report towards the tail end of last year, we were threatening the par strike. People were loading up on 500 calls almost every session. Pretty much none of that came to fruition, and now we're looking at, every time we talk about Tesla now, it's 430 puts, 420 puts. So interesting to see maybe a little bit of the warm turning out there in Tesla, at least for near-term sentiment. Number 2, 1.41 on the tape today. That means the big dog, once again, NVIDIA, 184.5, off 4 2/3, or about 2.5%. So I guess whatever little love they got from the CES announcement is starting to wear off a little bit today. Number 1, 2.11 million contracts on the tape. If you're wondering, NVIDIA off 2 3/4 year to date as well, or about 5 1/4 handles, which most of that coming today, 470 is what they're selling off today. So an interesting run out here in the top 10. Is it interesting on the earnings front? The answer is yes. It can't be less interesting than it was over the last couple of weeks, because literally nothing was announcing, listeners. But we're starting to wind down the dregs before we really kick it off into a new season. So a couple of names popping off this week you might want to pay attention to, including after the bell today. We've got Tilray. This is a sector that kind of languished for a long time, for years, after starting out hot, and then recently with some announcements out of Washington starting to come to life again. How will that impact the future outlook for this name? I guess we'll find out after the bell today. Also got everybody's favorite WD-40, and my favorite name. I always point to them as saying, okay, you know, earnings season is over when this name is on the docket. Who are we talking about? Yeah, it's our old pal, Helen of Troy. They popped off before the bell today. If you're wondering, by the way, Helen of Troy, ticker symbol HELA, H-E-L-E. They came into their announcement before the bell today. Their stock was at 21.08 going into their announcement. They were pricing in 10% exactly. They delivered 13.2%. They were not feeling the love for Helen of Troy today. They were selling them off. Looks like since then they have rallied. They're 21.5 right now. So that's it's kind of interesting. So this report earlier in the session. Oh yeah, they did sell off to about exactly 18:30 right before the opening bell. And then since then they've rallied north. So I guess we ran this report right at the absolute nadir of the day. That's interesting, because they now have a run 21.5. So looking a little bit better on the day right now. Helen of Troy. You know, when we're fixated on them, listeners, that it's pretty much the end. But don't worry. If you want some real names to sink your teeth into, well, we got you covered. Next week, we got earnings reports for all the hot names that are starting to pop off. Earnings season proper kicks off next week, listeners. We got JP Morgan. We got Bank of America. We got Citi. We got all the names you want to trade. Goldman Sachs. I mean, you name it. Wells Fargo. All the financials. That's what usually kicks off earnings season. That's what's kicking us off here again next week. So you can find all those reports on the website, as well as, of course, hundreds of other tickers we don't have a chance to break down here on this. I'll just pick one at random. Let's do JP Morgan. 13th before the bell. They were at 327 when we ran this report. They were pricing in $11.61. In the past, they moved $9.17. So a wee bit of extra juice for JP Morgan. Interesting. Is that merited, listeners? You think more juice in the financials these days? At least for Morgan, that's the case. I'm looking really quickly. Bank of America pricing in about 60 cents more on their straddle. And Citi pricing in about $1.30. $1.25 more on their straddle. So it looks like more juice is the order of the day on the major financials. Goldman Sachs, oh my goodness, $21.86 was their straddle, was their past earnings move, I should say. $40.47 is what they're pricing in right now. So apparently more juice is the order of the day in the financials. You agree with that? Or are you saying sold to you? I'm curious. Hit us up. Let us know. Obviously, the season right now, hanging out at a whopping goose egg. We'll wait till the names start popping off. Our long-term average back down to a more somewhat normal 102% after just a wild run up to 115, 119% and beyond. A wild time out there. Speaking of wild times, listeners, it is time to get wild with the Flowmaster. It is time for the Odd Block.
It's time to break down the most interesting, unusual, and downright questionable options activity that's been identified by theoptionsinsider.com. It's time for the Odd Block.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Odd Block, the portion of the show where we get weird, we get wild, and we also unleash the Flowmaster for the first time in the mad new year. That is 2026. And where is he fixing his steely gaze first? To kick off the new year, listener, we're going out to Las Vegas into the world of gaming. It's Caesars Entertainment. Listeners, 25.34, up about 234, about 10.25%. Actually, they are based technically out of Reno, so I guess we're going to Reno, not to Las Vegas, listeners. But a good day for Caesars on the year, though. Has it been a good year? The answer is no. They're off about 6 2/3, or almost 21%. Ouch. The high was actually $40 exactly that they hit. Guess when? Oh, yeah, it's the day that so many other names had their apex for the year last year, Valentine's Day. February 14th, they hit $40 exactly, and they're now trading $25.34. So been a bit of a rough year for Caesars. That said, their low came in October of 18.25. So if you want to get a glass half full, then they have rallied a wee bit since mid to late October. And what did we spot out there today, Mr. Flowmaster? What caught your eye in the world of Caesars Entertainment Inc.?
So yeah, this is a little bit of an interesting one, and actually the trade that caught my eye happened during the show. But what we see currently is a total of 38,000 contracts have traded. It's we still have 2 hours to go. Average daily volume is only 10,000 contracts, so it's about 5 times the normal volume for this time of day. It's the puts lead calls 2-1, and the biggest block actually is puts. It was the Jan of 2028, 8 strike puts. Somebody bought 10,000 of those for 62 cents. That was about 10 minutes before noon New York time when stock was 24.79. Now that's a floor trade, so you got to be kind of like, I mean, it definitely looks like a buyer to me. It's long dated, Jan of 2028. And when I look at kind of unusual option volume and kind of unusual trades, blocks of puts I discount a little bit just because puts have two purposes. One is speculating about a move lower, but the second is just kind of some sort of natural hedging. Now, as you said, the stock has not done anything super amazing. That 52-week range of basically 18-ish to 40-ish, and we're kind of at the low end of it now. But the trade that actually caught my eye that I did something about was a buyer of, let's see, what do we have? I just lost it. A buyer of the March 33 call. So basically at 116, okay, so as the show was running, there was actually a buyer of 1,800 at 108, and then there was a buyer of 4,200 of these at 115. And that says the stock was basically kind of trading up through $25. It's heavy call and put volume. The call volume just kind of struck me as a little bit more compelling. I actually did take a little bit of stock around 25.12, and as you said, it's over 25.30 right now. So that trade is doing okay. I don't know if there's a catalyst. There's this. I mean, in the options industry, everybody's acutely aware of this interesting kind of morphing of event contracts and sports betting and finance. It's all coming together. Basically, you can trade. If you have a Robinhood account, for example, you can trade all those things. You can trade. You can bet on sports. You can trade event contracts, and you can trade options and stocks as well. So it is kind of interesting as these worlds start to collide. But that's for Caesars. That one was compelling enough for me to take a little bit of stock, and I don't know if I'm going to hold on to it very long, but make a little money.
Let's see if we can make a little money in our next name, which, Mr. Flowmaster, I do appreciate that I appreciate a good, appropriate ticker. And is there a more appropriate ticker for this segment, Mr. Flowmaster, than odd? If there is one, I challenge you to find it, sir, because that is what we have up next, listeners. This is Oddity Tech Limited, ticker symbol odd, ODD. I don't know, this one has not come on our radar before. It is certainly suitable for the segment, for the name alone. Trading $38 exactly right now, so kind of hunched. A weird day out there for them. On the year, though, it's kind of been a tale of fits and starts. They're actually off about 5 1/3 or 12.3%. But it looks like this one got caught up in a little bit of meme or AI frenzy last year, or a little bit of both maybe, because they had a nice little run. They popped up to about $79 back in June of last year. And they hung out there for a while until August, and then they fell off a cliff in August. They went from $74 August 4th. By August 7th, they were in the 50s. And then by October, they were down, and in November even, they're down to the 30s again and kind of hanging out where they are right now. So had a nice pop in the middle of the year and kind of gave it all back. If you're not familiar with this name, this is an AI-based beauty name. They use AI out of Israel. They use AI to create personalized beauty products, and apparently they're really big on that. They tout that 40% of their workforce for a beauty company are engineers and data scientists. So they're really big on taking your data and working on it in all sorts of different ways. So sounds like people were pretty hot on that in the summertime. Maybe they've cooled a little bit. But Mr. Flowmaster, what did you find in my new favorite ticker, odd?
Yeah, I definitely picked this. Well, I was looking through my list of kind of some weird ones, and when there's one with the ticker odd, you gotta focus on it. It is a name I don't even know if I've ever heard of it. But there's one standout trade today for sure, and it also traded as the show was running. So at 124 today, we saw a buyer of 4,600 of the April 50 calls. They paid $1.39. Stock was at 37.18. And that's a pretty decent chunk of change. That's about $640,000 in option premium. This is for a contract that's 30% out of the money and expires in 99 days. So, and it's, I'm looking back at call volume. It is the busiest day for calls since August. And, as you said, it definitely got picked up in some AI boom hype cycle back in April. And, to go from 40 to 77. Then it got kind of smoked on August 4th. It's possible that was earnings. Now it does have earnings coming up in February, so that might be kind of the catalyst. Although they picked the Aprils for some reason. It's an odd one. Might be good for a little position. In a way, it's like you look at it, you're like, okay, the whole thing sounds a little hokey. You can put AI in, anything and put a press release out. And that really is what we saw early last year. I don't know if this is the same kind of vibe or not, but stock really is pretty beaten up. And somebody put out $600,000 on a position that really is only going to make money if this stock kind of really takes a jump higher.
Very odd paper, to say the least. I'm certainly adding odd to my watch list. This one you've been watching, listeners? Were you part of that big frenzy towards the middle of the year last year? Or is this a newcomer for you as we keep going out to the land of Vision Wave? From beauty, we go to pretty much the polar opposite end of the spectrum. We go to defense. Vision Wave looks like they are a drone manufacturer. Ticker symbol VWave, VWAV, I should say. 1231 today, up about $1.30 or nearly 12%. Obviously, as we've said, it's been kind of a wild couple of days for the defense sector. First, Trump coming along saying, these companies need to cut their dividends and deliver more. They can't do business with the Pentagon, and stock taking a hit. And then now we're coming back a day or so later, kind of saying almost the exact opposite. We're going to double defense spending or somewhere along those lines. It's been a whirlwind week for defense names as exhibited by this stock. This stock was trading $9.30 on Tuesday, and today is trading $12.30, so up exactly $3. So a big pop out there for this name. Just wild stuff out here. On the year, well, it's been a good year. It was $3.52 a year ago. And by a year, I say only July of last year. So it looks like this is a newer addition to oh, you know what? This was a result of an acquisition. The Vision Wave acquired Quantum Speed out here, listeners. So this is kind of a newer chart as a result. We only have data going back to July of last year. But since last July, they've had a good run, up $9, including, like I said, another $3 just in the last few sessions. So, Mr. Flowmaster, been a weird week on the defense side. What did you spot in Vision Wave, sir?
Yeah, I mean, I think we mentioned earlier, this is kind of one of the quick little themes that's going around, is comments out of, the president about defense spending and some kind of, I don't know, announcements that they may up the Pentagon budget and this and that. What I'm looking at in V-Wave is 7,000 calls trading, which is 16 times normal, versus just 380 puts. So very directionally bullish. When a stock goes from 9 to 12, you definitely, people start to pay attention. Today, there's one good chunky block that happened just before 10 a.m. when customer paid 80 cents for 1,950 of the March 15 calls. Stock was 11.96 then, so they're doing okay. Although I looked at it, they kind of had to pay up to get into the position. Those even though the stock's about 40 cents higher, those options are still quoted 70, 85 cents. So we need to continue higher, or maybe vol needs to kind of get a little bit of a bid for them to be looking at any real profit. But it is a 2-month position. Struck another almost $3 out of the money, a little bit more than $3 for them to break even. I did go and look at kind of this is the busiest call day really since kind of October. And the stock was higher in October. The stock was like around 13.50. So it just seems like obviously drones in conflict, or everybody's kind of aware of the role that they play now. So I mean, maybe that's somebody just kind of saying I like the business, I like the stock. But it's a directional chunk too. I don't know if I would buy any of this one just because I don't know the name at all. But again, when we see these options that are 30% of the money, $15 strike on a $12 stock, opening a new position, I pay attention to those, and I wouldn't rule out getting long it. Probably just get long the stock rather than do it via options. But it's another interesting one. We got plenty of good odd blocks for the first week of the year. That's for sure.
We do. We're just adding to the docket we have of trades that we're tracking for the Flowmaster. We'll pay some of them off really soon, listeners. But first, let's keep going and get a little bit of the old Thursday mail block.
It's time to take your seat on the All-Star panel as we read your emails, tweets, Facebook messages, website comments, and much more. It's time for the Mail Block.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Mail Block. And we got some fun questions of the week going on right now. Very contentious. Get over there at Options and make your voice heard. But I actually wanted to try to squeeze in this question that came in from our live chat. Kind of an interesting one. This comes from Mr. Unlimited. He wants to know, is there a way to find out how many new people or new accounts were open last year, or how many more traders there are? This goes back to what we were talking about at the top of the show, Mr. Flowmaster, about so much more options volume going up. The other side of that coin, the other question then is, how many new traders are there? And the obvious answer to that question is, well, most of these brokers are all for-profit public companies, so they have to kind of reveal accounts and things like that. So you can go broker by broker and add them all up. And then, of course, you have to talk about there's some transition from one broker to the next, so you have to kind of do an aggregate analysis there. I'm curious if you know any shorthand metric for doing that, Mr. Flowmaster. And Uncle Mike, you cut your teeth in the brokerage space. If you have any thoughts on this as well, have at it.
I'll comment. We do get this question in terms of, when we see, basically 25 to 30 million contracts a day, and we based on the 6 of sixes, we know it's coming from, brokers, including Robinhood and Schwab and Fidelity and Interactive Brokers. But the reality is that even though they are public, they're not required to produce statistics on account openings. Some of them do and make it nice and clear. There's also just kind of a lot of Robinhood will throw out numbers like they have 40 million accounts, and then, we'll ask, well, how many trade options? And what we'll get is an answer like, well, 10% of them are permissioned for options trading, but that doesn't help you too much. So there really is no kind of comprehensive answer. All of the hard data and the anecdotal stuff that I hear is that, the growth is still very brisk. And, you are right. Some people, move an account from one broker to another, or, even more likely, they just, they leave $100 at broker A and they open up an account at broker B. And so now you have more accounts. But I think that, we even see, new brokerage offerings coming along. So, there really is no definitive answer into how many accounts exist and how many retail accounts exist. And then you get into the murky waters where, what's a retail account? There's accounts I know of at some of these brokers that you might say, well, that's a retail broker, but I also know that, they have some $30 million, $40 million accounts. And I don't know if you would count that as a retail account, even though it comes to a retail broker. So within Cboe, when we do analysis of retail activity, especially in the SPX 0DTE complex, because we get a lot of questions about that. Not only do we kind of try to limit the scope to the brokers that people consider retail, but we also kind of have to exclude large trades that just don't make any sense for retail. And so we come up with an estimate. But the answer is we do continue to see growth in the activity, and I believe it's coming from more accounts rather than just the existing accounts trading more. And part of that is just the market conditions. I mean, the market's been really strong, and the buy the dip has worked. I was just listening to Steve Sosnick from Interactive Brokers, actually was on in the media, and he said, listen, buy the dip, whether it's a great strategy or not. You could argue that it's just maybe it's not much of a strategy at all. However, the people that have bought the dips over the last 4 or 5 years have done really, really well, and they're as long as they didn't get whip themselves around or kind of get over leveraged, they're sitting on really big gains. And so that really does is very powerful, to pull in new investors, people that are, graduating college, getting some disposable income, and realizing that, if you look back at the equities performance over the last few years, it's been, really, really strong. And, there's no saying whether it's going to, that we're going to continue in this bull market. But, that you certainly, I think most people, believe you have to allocate a big part of your wealth to the equities market. And, listed options just are kind of, a complementary way to do that, along with, core holdings in like a 401k or something like that.
All right, time to go around the block.
It's time to tell you what we'll be watching on our trading screens until the next episode. It's time for Around the Block.
All right, everybody, as we head into the end of the show here, we've got the S&P off almost 0.1%. So Uncle Mike's been busy not buying, which is why it continues to turn red. NASDAQ off about 0.2%. Dow up about 0.5%. And VIX cash taking up to about 15.5 as we wind down the show here. Uncle Mike, if you have any thoughts about, the brokerage accounts for options traders and their growth or perhaps lack thereof, have at it. Really quickly, our question of the week right now, listeners, is what are your New Year's financial trading markets resolutions? Do you want to reduce your positions in AI? Do you want to explore global markets? Do you want to trade new option strategies or other? So, if, Mr. Uncle Mike, if you have a vote in that one as well. And then C, what are you keeping an eye on for the rest of the week?
Well, I'm going to skip A and B, and I'm just going to go right to C. I think the big thing right now that could be a big market mover would be the tariff decision with the Supreme Court. It's going to be yay, nay, or something else, of course. And I think we're going to get some type of movement, whether the market likes it or dislikes it, which remains to be seen. But I think that's the big news event that's going on right now that I'm going to be watching.
I tee up for 3 things. You only give me 1, sir. You're killing me. You're killing me here, Mr. Flowmaster, sir. What are you keeping an eye on? And then B, if you have a New Year's trading resolution or one you think our audience is voting for, have at it, sir.
Well, the Friday, tomorrow is going to be busy. We have employment numbers at 8:30 before the open, although you can trade SPX and XSP and VIX options right through that. So that is, data that, market's been a little bit starved for. I think we also have some housing starts in data around the same time, 8:30. And then we have the Supreme Court expected to rule on the tariffs, which I guess could certainly result in some fireworks. I don't know what we're going to get out of that. And then, we do have earnings not too far off. So just see among like the really liquid names, you mentioned Tilray. I own some of that stock. It has not done me any good because pot names, even though every once in a while they get a nice surge on headlines, they've really, really struggled. But we have financials coming up next week. Netflix and Intel, I think the week after, actually when I'm in Chicago. But I'm just gonna be kind of watching. It's right now we're in a choppy sideways market that's been struggling a little bit. I think that the Venezuela action and then the comments on Greenland and other countries, they definitely get some people stressed out. And but at the same time, when you look at a market that's already up 1% in the first week of the year for the S&P, you also have kind of some real pressure to put some money to work. So I think you have a lot of different dynamics at play, and I think it's gonna be a busy month. That's for sure.
All right, that music means we have come to the end of another sojourn through the world of all things option blocking. But if you need more in your life, don't worry. I'll be back in a little bit to talk all things futures options with our good buddy, Miss Carly Garner, our runner-up in our fantasy football contest from last year. So it should be fun checking in with her for the first time in the new year. She's been fading a lot of this metals love of late. Be interesting to see what she has to say on that and a lot of other hot topics. But before we get there, Mr. Uncle Mike, sir, if folks want more Uncle Mike goodness in their life, where should they go? What should they do?
Continue to follow my YouTube channel. More content will be coming. Just type in St. Charles Wealth Management in the YouTube search box. And then if you'd like to have a conversation with good old Uncle Mike, go to stcharleswealth.com, set up an appointment with me. I'm always happy to discuss finances and options with anyone looking for a financial advisor, especially our listeners.
There you go. Check them out, stcharleswealth.com. Mr. Flowmaster, if folks want to check out all your goodies as well as some Mag 10 options, or maybe even a nano or two, where should they go? What should they do?
The nanos are still out there, even though I've given my official permission for them to sunset the product. But they do still trade. But I've actually been having much more fun watching the MGTN Mag 10 index with the daily contracts. So and just getting used to that index because it's a equal weighted. It's not a cap weighted index, so it's not quite the same as the way something like NDX or Qs or SPY or SPX trade. There's a different feel to it. Just head over to cboe.com/RMA, and if you go to cboe.com and in the search bar you can type in MGTN. There's a microsite on that talks about the futures and the options and how that product works. It's worth kind of taking a look at and trying to decide if it might present some interesting opportunities.
Check it out, MGTN, if you are intrigued. Listeners, that's going to do it for us on the old OB. Back again in a little bit with This Week in Futures Options, and back again after the closing bell to break down the whole day on the old Hot Options Report. And then back tomorrow to kick off the new year with Dr. Vix on Vol Views. I'm sure he'll have some thoughts on the wild year that was 2025. Then, of course, back again with our pro friends for the official after party of Vol Views, known as Options Oddities. Check it out, theoptionsinsider.com/pro if you want to get in. And then, of course, the Hot Options Report before we're back again on Monday. What will the trivia battle be on Monday? I don't know. We'll find out on the next episode of the Option Block. Stay safe out there, everybody.
The Option Block is brought to you by SIBO. SIBO's suite of S&P 500 index options, SPX and mini S&P 500 XSP options, allows traders to speculate on the direction of the market, generate income, and hedge for downside protection of their portfolio of stocks. No matter what kind of trader you are, there's plenty of useful information to take the guesswork out of creating your portfolio strategy and to help you make more educated moves in the market. Visit www.sibo.com/SPX today to learn more. The views expressed herein are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views of CBOE Global Markets Incorporated or any of its subsidiaries, collectively CBOE. The information provided is for general education and information purposes only. There are important risks associated with transacting in any of the CBOE products or any of the digital assets discussed here. Before engaging in any transactions in those products or digital assets, it is important for market participants to carefully review the disclosures and disclaimers contained at www.cboe.com/US_disclaimers. These products and digital assets are complex and are suitable only for sophisticated market participants. These products involve the risk of loss, which can be substantial and, depending on the type of product, can exceed the amount of money deposited in establishing the position. Market participants should put at risk only funds they can afford to lose without affecting their lifestyle. You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.